Cola with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and this is the battle of the juicers here. We're doing another juice off, and what we're going to use today is the Omega VRT400 HDS versus the Slowstar SW2000 juicer. Now both these juicers are vertical single auger style machines, and they both have relatively small footprints. So that means they take up less counter space, and if counter space is a premium in your house, these are the juicers you may want to consider. Now these juicers in general are good at juicing hard vegetables, fruits, and leafy greens all about equally. I can't say they necessarily do one better than the other. I mean, each juicer specifically has their own pros and cons. Like in general, I've observed that the Omega VRT does the fruits a little bit better than the Slowstar juicer, but the Slowstar juicer tends to juice the leafy greens and vegetables better than the Omega VRT. So in this juice off, what we're going to share with you guys is actually which juicer will reign supreme when juicing simply two things. Cucumbers. I got a long cucumber. You like my long cucumber? And this is an Armenian cucumber. They're excellent to juice. And we're simply going to half this cucumber in two identical halves with the same weight and juice each half in both juicers. In addition, we're juicing the leafy greens. So today what I happen to have is 11 ounces pre-weighed of a spring mix. Spring mix is definitely a good thing to juice, especially in the vertical juicers. In the vertical juicers, generally you need to pre-cut things like celery and kale and collard greens, because a hard fibrous stalk in there, the strings will get stuck in the machine, stuck in the ejection port, and then it's not going to juice properly. So that's why I like to juice the baby greens, because they tend to juice a lot easier in the vertical juicers. Now if you do want to juice mostly or all leafy green vegetables, I would not necessarily recommend these machines. I would recommend you take a look at the Slowstar 3 juicer, which is made by Trivest, the same company that makes the Slowstar juicer, or the Omega NC800 or Omega NC900, which is made by Omega, the same company that makes the Omega VRT400. Those machines are definitely best for the leafy greens. Of course, every machine has their pros and cons, and my job here is to let you guys know how each machine performs, so that when you get the juicer, you know exactly what's going to happen, and that you know exactly you got the machine that's going to best meet your needs. So be sure to check my other videos on YouTube. I have over 350 videos at this point where I compare and contrast all the different juicers and do juice offs similar to this, so that you'll watch them and you'll see, oh, I like that that juicer does that, but I don't like that that juicer does that. And you'll finally come up with like, oh, that's a juicer I like because of these things. And I try to just basically share with you guys all the pros and cons of each machine, because I use these machines virtually every day to make fresh juice so that I can eat a healthy, plant-strong diet rich in fresh fruits and vegetables. One of the things I've learned over these last 18 years of leading a healthy, plant-based diet is that the fruits and vegetables are where it's at, and we want to include more of those. The problem is most Americans do not include enough fresh fruits and vegetables and eat far too many processed foods, animal foods, and junk foods in their diet. So we want to make our diets rich in fruits and vegetables, and the juicers are the perfect, and in my opinion, best tools to allow you to do just that. In any case, let's get into the juice off. The first thing is we're going to have to cut up the cucumber. So I got a little knife here, and we're going to try to the best of my ability to slice this guy exactly in half. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and weigh this guy out and make it even, so that we're juicing half in each machine. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut up the cucumber here. And I got it almost in half. Check it out. Split this guy right up. And I like to juice cucumbers when they're large and big and have larger seeds, because they're not maybe necessarily the best cucumbers to eat, but they're really good to juice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put it on each scale here. I've zeroed out the scale so you can see the weight on that. So that weight on that cucumber on that side looks like to be 1.230 pounds. And then transferring over onto this side, looks like the weight is 1.184 pounds. So what we're going to simply do is go over to this side, and we're just going to go ahead and shave off some of this cucumber so we have exactly the same weight. So now we're down to 1.194, pretty close now. We're going to go ahead and take another smidget off here, and check it out, we got 1.184. So we got identical amounts of cucumbers on both sides. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to start juicing, and I'm going to start juicing in the Slowstar juicer first. Alright, so now that we got the produce weighed out, the next thing is to start juicing. But before I do, I want to share with you guys some of the differences between these guys. I mean, you guys could instantly see one juicer is definitely taller than the other. The Slowstar towers over the Omega VRT400 juicer. Now, these machines are both designed and made in Korea. That's the originator and the place where the vertical auger juicer originated. I highly discourage you guys from getting cheap, inexpensive machines that are made in China. They're knockoffs of the Korean version. In my opinion, these are two of the best made single auger vertical style juicers ever made, and these are the ones that I recommend to you to consider the most. And after this video, you may sway one way or the other. Be sure to check my other videos. You know, I have a specific video where I compare these two machines in detail, and I have another video where I'm juicing fruits in actually these two machines to show you guys how it does with fruits. In any case, the main thing I want to point out is that the machine on this side has a 10-year warranty. The Omega VRT actually has a 15-year warranty, so I like that a lot. The Omega VRT has this little flap here that actually you could close so that it makes cleaning a little bit easier. Also, it allows you to be more effective when making nut milks, although you can also make nut milks in the Slowstar juicer. Now, one of the features I like about the Slowstar that the Omega VRT does not have, it has what's called a mincing or homogenizing attachment. And what the mincing and homogenizing attachment that is included with the juicer allows you to do is it allows you to make frozen banana sorbets and nut butters. And as a matter of fact, I have a video me showing how you guys could do that in the Slowstar juicer. So be sure to check YouTube for my other videos on the Slowstar juicer so you can learn more about it specifically. In any case, without further ado, let's just get into this juice off without wasting any more time. We're going to go ahead and take our spring mix here and just rip off the top. Now, it's very important when juicing in any juicer, you want to do what's called produce rotation. You don't want to just put like all the leafy greens and then all the cucumber in the machine. You want to give the juicer different textures, right? So we want to do like a handful of leafy greens and a piece of cucumber. A handful of leafy greens and a piece of cucumber. In this way, the juicer is going to be a lot more effective than just putting all the leafy greens and all the cucumbers. You know, these machines require hard fibrous material to juice properly. So by adding simply some root vegetables such as a carrot or some beets or some daikon radish, the machine's going to work that much better. The texture on the cucumber is a little bit hard, so some machines might have some problems pushing out the produce, but we're going to see how that works for you guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and turn these machines on and start juicing. Alright, so let's turn on the Slowstar juicer. Now the Slowstar juicer, this runs at a low and slow 47 RPM. So this is currently the slowest slow juicer available on the market today. The Omega VRT400 runs at 80 RPM, so it's almost, you know, double. So I like that this one's running really slow. In general, the slower or the lower the RPMs, the more nutrition that's going to be made in your juice because the less oxidation. Also, the lower RPMs may affect, you know, how the machine works and its yield actually. So as you guys can see, we're shoving in the leafy greens into the feed chute, and we're just basically going to shove these in a lot. I recommend going pusherless on the single auger juicers when possible because the leafy greens, they are kind of getting stuck in the feed chute here. We may need to use the actual pusher to push them in. In general, you only want to use the pusher that comes with the machine to push produce in the machine. You know, don't use a knife or any other object to push the produce in because it may damage the juicer and damage the object you're putting in. So we're going to go ahead and just take the pusher and push some of these leafy greens in. Doesn't take too much strength at all to push the greens in. Next, we're going to go ahead and try to feed that cucumber in and check it out. It'll kind of go in there. We'll let it bite off a couple bites. And now the cucumber is getting stuck because it's actually too wide. So we're just going to simply take the knife and slice the cucumber down the long way, right down the middle, and slice this into two pieces so that now we could, you know, put some in. And when we're putting this in, we're feeding a couple things in, and it's biting off some chunks, and then we're pulling it back up so that we'll have this to juice a little bit later. Now we're just going to go ahead and simply rotate, putting in the leafy greens and the cucumber just a little bit at a time. Right, so we're going to continue to put some leafy greens in the machine. Once we put a little bit of the leafy greens, we're just going to go ahead and push it in with the cucumber. And listen for the machine to chop off a couple pieces of the cucumber. This will really help get the pulp flowing through the machine. If you only put leafy greens in, you know, they may not actually eject out of the machine because the machine does need something more, fibrous than the leafy greens, which are actually very soft texture. So that's why I recommend juicing leafy greens with some maybe carrots or celery or even the cucumber here. One of the things I like about the Slowstar juicers, you can see the where the juice comes out, it's like a little waterfall pouring out, and I like that it's actually high off the table. This allows you to put something like a wide mouth 32-ounce mason jar to catch your juice in if you don't want to use the plastic collection cups. I like to use glass whenever possible. So I mean, this is going really well. As you guys can see, the pulp is coming out this side over here, and it definitely looks fairly dry. And there it is flowing out a little bit at a time. Once you put the cucumber in there, then it really starts pushing the pulp out. Just the leafy greens alone, not much pulp is coming out. I'm going to go ahead and continue to juice these leafy greens, and we'll be back at you once we're finished. Alright, so I'm continuing to juice the leafy greens. I'm just about done juicing the leafy greens in the Slowstar juicer. I probably have about 4 more handfuls left. Once again, we're taking like 2 handfuls, and then we're going to go ahead and put some of that cucumber in there, but not use too much. Just take off like a bite or 2 of the cucumber, and then pull it back out. Now, in my opinion, the leafy greens, and these leafy greens here, are one of the most important produce items you want to juice. I mean, when's the last time you ate leafy greens? I mean, many people might eat salads, but the juicer really allows you to concentrate the amount of leafy greens you get in so you can get more in you. Leafy greens are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. What does this mean, nutrient-dense? That means it has the most nutrition, including vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and antioxidants, and these kind of things, compared to the calories. Most Americans are eating calorie-rich foods like junk food, fast food, that have a lot of calories, but not a lot of nutrients. And people, although they're getting calories, are literally starving themselves. So that's why I like the leafy greens so much. They're really going to give you the nutrition that, in my opinion, many people may be missing in this day and age. My personal goal is to eat 2 pounds of leafy greens each and every day. You might be thinking, John, man, 2 pounds of leafy greens, man, that's a lot of leafy greens. Well, hey, this is 11 ounces, and then many times I'll get the 16-ounce leafy green containers, and I'll just juice those through the juicer. 16 ounces of leafy greens, maybe I make approximately 1 cup of juice, and then I'll be able to drink the 1 cup of juice, and there I got 1 pound of leafy greens. Then later in the day I might eat, a 1 pound salad for dinner, or maybe make a green smoothie with my Vitamix and, blend up 16 ounces, 12 ounces of leafy greens. Actually, I did that earlier today. I ate in a green smoothie 12 ounces of leafy greens, a couple bananas, and some coconut water. And then, just in a little bit, I'll be drinking this. So I'll be even having more greens in my diet. I'll be up to a total of about 24 ounces. So if I have an 8-ounce salad tonight of leafy greens, I've met my 2 pound, goal for the day. Well, we just put in the last cucumber there, and as you guys can see, it's working really good. We got the juice that come out, and yes, there is some foam created there, and followed by the pulp. We're going to let that run a little while to fully extract all the juice out. While that's running, we're going to go ahead and turn on the Omega VRT400 and start juicing in it. Once again, we got 12 ounces of pre-weighed leafy greens here, and we're going to go ahead and pre-slice our cucumber right down the middle so it fits down the feed chute there. I think we'll go ahead and turn the Slowstar juicer off. Now I want you guys to listen to see if you guys hear any difference in the the volume level of the Omega VRT400. I mean, it might be just a tad bit louder, but these are still very silent juicers compared to some of the other high-speed machines you may have seen in other videos or seen in the stores. I mean, some juicers run it up to 10,000 or even 12 or 14,000 RPMs. RPM stands for revolutions per minute, or how many times it spins around in 1 minute. These are the slowest juicers in the world, and I like the slow juicers because they tend to preserve the most nutrition. The more the juicer spins, the more oxygen that's being introduced in the juice, which causes oxidation. It's like if you scratch your car and it's raining outside and then it gets wet and then it oxidizes. So if you live by the sandy beach, maybe like Jersey Shore, it would rust a lot faster than if you lived in Las Vegas where it doesn't rain and it's really dry and not salty, right? And rust is not a good thing because that's oxidation, but we don't want our juice to oxidize either. So that's why in my household I generally use 99.9% of the time the slow machines, and I no longer use the high-speed machines because after all, I'm juicing for nutrition, and I strive to do the best I can with what I do in life. And I've learned over time that the slow juicers are just far superior. Matter of fact, in some studies I've seen in some tests, there's up to 50% of certain nutrients made with the same produce when it's made in the slow juicer than a high-speed machine. So I mean, that's a pretty large difference. That being said, even the high-speed machines have their pros. I mean, you could be done literally in 5 seconds. I mean, this is taking a matter of minutes to juice, you know, all this produce. The high-speed machine would have been done already, seriously. But on the same flip side, if you're juicing leafy greens, and especially the spring mixes like I'm juicing today in the high-speed machine, you're going to get nothing or virtually nothing for yield. The high-speed machines will take these leaves, you'll put it in, it'll kick out whole leaves, and you'll be like saying, man, this juicer is a joke, man, it doesn't work on leafy greens. Well, that's because the high-speed machines, you know, they tend to work on hard vegetables, hard root vegetables, hard fruits like apples and beets and, you know, carrots and whatnot, and celery. They'll do decent on cucumbers too. But with the leafy greens, forget about it. So as you guys can see, we're juicing here. We're almost out of the 1/2 of the cucumber. We still got a bunch of leafy greens. I better step it up and shove more leafy greens in the spout. Now, in my opinion, when I'm feeding leafy greens in the Omega VRT, it's actually feeding a little bit easier, a little bit nicer. You know, the feed chute is just a tad bit bigger. Things are getting sucked into the juicer more because it has a single blade design on the auger. The Slowstar has a dual blade design, which, you know, single or dual blade design on the machines each have their pros and cons. The dual blade, people would want you to believe that the dual blade cuts things better, which it in fact may, and in my test I've actually seen that it does work a little bit better on things like celery than the single blade. But with the single blade, it's more auto-feeding in my opinion and from my experience. And I really like the auto-feeding feature because it just makes it easier so you don't have to keep pushing stuff in. And I really like how much easier it is to feed on the Omega VRT400. Alright, so as you guys can see, I'm noticing there's, you know, a tad bit more foam being created in the Omega VRT400 than on the Slowstar. So let's go ahead and continue to juice in the Omega VRT400. I'm going to go ahead and just, you know, once again, just put globs of the spring mix in the Omega VRT400. Once again, I like how easy it feeds in, and I want to show you guys the juice coming out here. As you guys can see, the juice is actually fairly foamy, especially more foamy than it was on the Slowstar machine. We can cap that off, which is really nice if you're taking the bowl out to you know, pour it off or whatnot. It'll build up in the machine, and this actually does a kind of mixing feature. And if you are using it as a mixing feature, you don't want to go more than the 300 milliliter max line before you empty it. Let's go ahead and continue to feed some more leafy greens in there and push a little bit of cucumber in behind it. Alright, now I want to show you guys when I release the little juice tap here. Watch all the green juice flow out. Look at that. Whoa, cool. Alright, so I think we're down to the last few handfuls of the leafy greens going into the Omega VRT400 juicer. And also I want you guys to notice the pulp coming out there. Now, while the pulp is not coming out in the full like width of the pulp outlet port, it is only maybe coming out half of it or even less. You know, don't be concerned if this happens to you. As long as pulp is a-flowing, the machine is working properly. So don't fret about that. Looks like we got about one last handful of leafy greens to put in to the Omega VRT400. And it looks like we're about done. Let's go ahead and follow this off with the last bit of cucumber. Now, I always recommend you use the cucumber or hard vegetables last when feeding in things into any vertical auger juicer, or any juicer for that matter. It's just going to kind of help push all that delicious leafy green juice out. As you guys can see, that's going in there, and now we're getting the pulp coming out and the juice coming out as well. And once again, we're going to let this run just a little bit longer to let the Omega VRT get maximum yield. Alright, so it looks like the Omega VRT400 is done. We're going to go ahead and turn that guy off. I like to put the plug down on that so it doesn't drip on the tabletop here. Also, some people like to tip this up, see if we can get just a little bit more juice out. And we didn't get too much. So we can do the same thing on the Slowstar, tip it up, and we still got a little bit more juice coming out. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to do two things. We're going to weigh the pulp that was generated, and then we're going to actually measure out how much juice came out. Alright, so next we're going to start to remove the pulp from the machines, and the first thing I want to say is that both machines come with a cleaning brush. So I like the cleaning brush actually on the Slowstar machine better because it actually has a little oversized toothbrush plus little bristles on the top, which helps and allows you to get into the nooks and crannies. and then the bottom side has a little screwdriver end that actually is like a little finger that's bent, whereas the vert brush actually just is like a toothbrush with a flat end screwdriver. So I like to use this little brush here to get pulp out of the outlet port here to make sure we get most of it as possible. Now we are only weighing the pulp that came out of the machines. We're not going to disassemble the machine to take the pulp out. So there may be residual pulp in the machine, so keep that into consideration on this test. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and simply dump the pulps onto both scales that we have zeroed out. All right, so let's go ahead and dump the pulps in both scales here and see which one weighs more or weighs less. All right, looks like we got most of the pulp out of the Slowstar. There we go. That's all finished. Now we got to go ahead and get the pulp out of the Omega VRT400. Now I do need to say I do like the container significantly better on the Omega VRT400. You actually get a larger pulp container than with the Slowstar, where you get two identical containers. So let's go ahead and look at the results here. So it looks like to me that on the Omega VRT, the pulp weighed 0.5044, and that's about a ½ pound. And it looks like the Slowstar Juicer, it weighed actually 0.3682. So that means the pulp weighed less on the Slowstar, so that means probably the Slowstar actually made a greater yield because it took more juice out of the pulp. The next thing I like to do is do the pulp test. Is that like the pulp dance? Well, what I like to do is I like to pick up the pulp, and we'll pick up the pulp on both machines, and I can just feel it right now is that the pulp on the Omega VRT400 is a little bit more wet, so let's go ahead and squeeze it. So as you guys could see, these juicers were not 100% efficient, and there's juice still left in both pulps. That being said, if you do want to get more juice out of these pulps, I would recommend you go down to your local paint store and get a nylon paint strainer bag or a clean pair of pantyhose. Put the pulp in there and just squeeze and wring out all the extra juice if that's what you want to do. You know, some juicers you can actually take the pulp and put it back through the machine to wring it out. Unfortunately, the vertical auger juicers are not juicers you could do that with. This generally works well with the horizontal auger juicers. If you put the pulp through the vertical auger juicers, in general they'll just get backed up unless you're feeding it in with some carrot right behind the pulp, in which case it will work a little bit better. Next, let's go ahead and check out the yield test. Alright, so now let's go ahead and check out what really counts, the yield, and see how much each juicer made. So we got the same size measuring containers here. And what we're going to do next is actually we're going to go ahead and pour each of the juices through the standard same size strainer. Now each of these machines come with their own strainer to strain out the pulp. In general, the vertical auger juicers, no matter what the brand is, create more or less pulp. I've personally seen from my experience using these machines that the Slowstar generally makes a little bit less pulp than the Omega VRT. But it's very important to use the machines properly no matter what vertical auger juicer you use. So I'd recommend watching a video called Omega VRT Best Practices for any vertical single auger juicer and follow the directions I give in there for the best results to create the most pulp in the first place, so that you do not have to do the strainer if you don't want to. We're going to go ahead and strain it so that we have a fair fight here. So next, let's go ahead and take both these juices and pour them into the measuring cups. So before I pour these juices into the measuring cups, I want you guys to see, look at the amount of foam created. Now the Omega VRT actually produced more foam than the Slowstar. Granted, I do need to mention that the Slowstar juice had been sitting, I don't know, a couple minutes while I was making the Omega VRT juice, but even when the Slowstar juicer was finished, it did not make as much foam as the Omega VRT did. So you want to take that into consideration because some people don't like the foam. Personally, the foam is not really an issue. Just mix it up into the juice and it's not really a big problem. We're going to go ahead and now pour in the juices into the collection cups at the same time, and we're going to see which juicer made less foam and less pulp in the juice overall. As you guys can see, each juicer created some foam and some pulp. There it is. We got all the greens out, all the foam out. Tapping these guys down a little bit. And as you guys can see, we got the majority of the juice out of both containers. Now, let's look at the results. So now let's check the yield. First thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and shake this down a little bit. Try to get every last drop out. And before I show you the results, I want to show you guys actually the pulp that was left over. Check it out. It's definite, in my opinion, that the Omega VRT made more foam and actually made more pulp left in the strainer here. So if you don't like pulp in the juice, the Slowstar is definitely the way to go. I mean, yes, it did make foam, but a lot less than the Omega VRT. Now let's check for the yield, which is one of the most important things. So going down, checking the yield, looking at them side by side. First, on the Omega VRT400 side, looks like this one made approximately 1.75 cups of juice. That's definitely really good, but now let's take a look at what the Slowstar Juicer did. Wow, this guy made approximately 2.25 cups of juice. So what this means is that the Slowstar Juicer made literally a half cup more of juice. And I want to remind you guys that, you know, less yield means you're flushing money down the drain. If there's money or juice left in your pulp, then you're not getting all of it. So in this test, it clearly shows that the Slowstar Juicer made half a cup more, which is approximately 22% more juice. So that means by using the Slowstar Juicer, you're definitely going to get more green juice out of your greens. So once again, every juicer has its pros and cons. Some of the other things I like about the Slowstar Juicer is that it does come with a homogenizing attachment, which allows you to make frozen banana sorbets, nut butters, pâtés, homogenize things such as eggplant, make salsas. So really useful. It even includes a couple recipes in the booklet. So before I go, a juice off would not be a juice off without trying the juice and letting you guys know what I think, see which one tastes better or whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and first try the Omega VRT juice. Once again, this is entirely spring mix and cucumbers. Now I may not necessarily recommend that you guys make this particular mix. It might be a bit strong for you guys. You might want to add some apple into it, but let me go ahead and try and see what it tastes like. Nice and smooth. Actually, it's not too bad. I mean, if you use large size kale leaves or large size chard leaves, it would taste a lot stronger because literally the spring mix is mostly like lettuce. So it's a nice mild green to get some greens in you. Next, let's go ahead and taste the juice from the Slowstar. You know what? I can't really say which juice tastes better than the other. They taste about the same. I mean, literally, this is made in a 47 RPM machine. This is made in an 80 RPM machine. You know, yeah, there's a difference in the RPMs, but it's not significant. It's not like this is 80 and this is like, you know, 10,000 RPMs, right? No matter which of these slow juicers you buy, you're definitely going to get the highest yield. You know, I found that with the Slowstar Juicer, it tends to work better on the hard vegetables and leafy greens. And, you know, while it will juice some fruits like watermelon fairly well, it doesn't juice other fruits like cactus fruit and some other fruits that I played with inside there. Whereas the Omega VRT, it definitely does better on the fruits, juices cactus fruits quite well. And when you're juicing single fruits alone, you know, if you want to juice all fruits, I would definitely go with the Omega VRT over the Slowstar. But if you want to do a mixture of fruits and vegetables, mixed juices with like fruits and vegetables, then, you know, either one of these will be fine. That being said, every juicer has its pros and cons. Be sure to check my other videos on YouTube for specific comparisons with these machines juicing other items, and also a specific video where I compare these two juicers in detail so that you'll learn the pros and cons, ins and outs of each style juicer. In my opinion, there are no perfect juicers, but there is the perfect juicer for you, and it's my job to share with you guys what I've learned and my experiences and show you guys in these videos what each juicer does so that you guys can truly pick the best juicer for you. In the end, I gotta say the Slowstar Juicer definitely won this juice off. Hopefully you enjoyed this juice off. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for further juice offs and more videos on appliances that will allow you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, because I believe they're truly the thing that everybody needs to eat more of. Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors. Alright, this is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you. Now, besides just selling the juicers, DiscountJuicers.com also offers appliances that allows you to get more fresh fruits and fresh vegetables into your diet, such as the one I'm going to talk about today. What I have here in front of me are what are called spiral slicers. These particularly are known as the 3-in-1 turning slicer, formerly known as the